It's nice to see you all. Thanks for coming along to the conference today. I hope you're having a good day so far. I'm here to talk to you about Benefact Trust. Now, some of you may well have heard of Benefact Trust. My name is Chloe Ewen. I am a grants officer for the Trust. I'm actually based in Kent, and my patch, as it were, is London and the South East. So you may be wondering, why am I here doing a conference for the North? That's because our grants officer for the North, Andrew, has had a really busy week in Ireland, because he's also a grants officer for the whole of Ireland and Scotland too. And so he's been over in Ireland doing lots of meetings and promotional work, and he's just having a well-deserved day off today. So I said that I would step in on his behalf. So I'm going to show you a presentation in a moment. It tells you a little bit more about the Trust, the sorts of things that we like to fund, the sorts of projects that the trustees are interested in. We'll also talk a little bit about what makes a great grant application, because I'm sure that's why many of you are here. There will be time for Q&A at the end, and we'll do that verbally if anyone has any questions they want to ask. But you can also type your questions into the chat function in Hoover, which I can access later and answer. Or you can also send me a direct message via Hoover as well. If you don't feel like you want to ask your question in a public forum, that's absolutely fine. We can do that afterwards, but I would welcome your questions. So as we're going through, have a little think about what you might want to ask me at the end. So I will just start sharing my screen for you. So bear with me while I sort that out. Okay, so you should be able to see that. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can? Thumbs up, is that okay?
We're the same as last time.
Oh, I've changed it. It should be the normal view now.
No, it's the same view as last time.
Oh.
It's just display settings again.
I did. That's exactly what I clicked, and it's come up correctly on mine.
Yeah, because you've got the presentation side and we've got the presenters side.
Right, I'll start again then. Right, so I'm going to change it now. So I'm clicking display settings and swap view. So you should, when I share the screen, be able to see the correct view. Is that better?
Yes.
Yay, it worked second time around. Fantastic. Sorry, everyone. I always have problems with Zoom. I'm not used to it. I'm used to Teams, and Zoom is really new to me. And every time I go into it, it seems to have updated and done something different. So apologies for that. But anyway, luckily we've got plenty of time. So here we go. Thanks for coming along to this talk. Okay, so this is what makes Benefact Trust a little bit different. We aim to make a positive and lasting difference to people's lives by funding and supporting Christian churches and charities in the UK and Ireland. We are fully ecumenical. We support all different Christian denominations and Christian organisations. However, obviously, we would expect our beneficiaries to themselves be supporting people of all faiths or none. And that isn't usually a problem for Christian churches or organisations, because that is generally what they do anyway. Okay, I'm going to show you a video now. Some of you may know that up until about March this year, Benefact Trust was actually called All Churches Trust, and many of you would have received a grant from us in the past. We've changed our name now to Benefact Trust, and as part of that, our communications team put together a really lovely video to share with the public why we've changed our name and also our future funding focus, that sort of thing. So I'm going to play that to you now. It's a bit of a tearjerker, so have your tissues handy. It's very emotional, but I love it. I really love it because we all need a little bit of hope in these troubled times. And I think, although it's emotional, it's a very positive video. So I always enjoy sharing this with people. So I hope you enjoy it. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. There we go. Could watch it again though, couldn't you? I mean, wasn't it a fantastic video? It just, every time I see that video, it gets me. It really does. You might have seen a quote on there that from one of our grants officers, Paul, who said, you know, it's not just a job for us. We're all personally invested in what we do. And that is so true. I mean, watching that video there, one of the clips was of a little boy accessing therapy. So he was playing with his therapist and his mum. That was one of my personal favorites. I shouldn't have favorites, but I do. And I helped that charity. They're based in London and they support children to access therapy that they couldn't otherwise afford. And they support the whole family through churches. I just love it. They just do such amazing work. And I think that's the difference with us, is that we're a really small team, we're a really large charity, but everybody that works for us is so invested in what we do that we really aim to add value to your experience with us, because we know exactly what you're doing. We are so grateful and thankful to you as people on the front line for doing all the wonderful work in your local communities. It's easy for us, we just give the money, but you guys are the ones that do the hard work. So we know you're mostly volunteers as well. Lots of you are. So, you know, you're giving up your own free time to do it too. So we're thankful, and we're not about to dismiss an application out of hand. We will contact you and work with you and speak to you to give you the best chance of success. So that's me in my impassioned speech. I feel so strongly about the trust and working for the trust. It's just a wonderful job. So we support churches and Christian charities addressing the following social challenges. You could be a tiny parish church, you could be a cathedral, you could be a Christian charity, and you will have experienced some of those issues in your beneficiaries. So obviously we're seeing a lot of mental health and loneliness coming out of the pandemic. And we've actually found that that's actually more prevalent amongst younger people than older people, which is quite surprising, really, when you think about it. But it's a real legacy of the pandemic, the effect on younger people, I think. Also, obviously, this winter, very sadly, we're going to be seeing a rise in homelessness and poverty with the rising cost of living crisis. And the trust, we are working behind the scenes to address the issues that are going to be prevalent within the, the rest of the year and the following year. So we are shaping our response to some of the current issues that we're seeing coming through at the moment. Okay, so this page just has a little overview of our grants programs. I won't go into too much detail about them because we have a brilliant website, a new website for Benefact Trust, and it tells you all about the different grant schemes, your eligibility for them, and how to apply. So I would definitely have a really good look at our website. Something I didn't mention in the previous presentation is that there's also a really good section on the website called Advice and Resources. Is brilliant. Even if you don't want to apply to Benefact Trust for a grant, there are so many useful fundraising resources on there for you to look at. We've got templates to use. We've got toolkits, evaluation resources. We've got blogs. We've got advice from leaders in churches and charities about applying for a grant. So it's really worth having a look at that website, even if you don't want to apply for us. You'll find lots of information on there. And that is just one of the ways that we like to add value to our beneficiaries, and just generally for people who are running fantastic projects all through the country. However, I expect most of you are representing churches today rather than charities. If you are, then the scheme that might be most appropriate for you is our general grant scheme. This is the scheme through which you can apply for capital costs. So for, say, building repairs and maintenance, and also equipment for your church as well, such as furniture or AV equipment. We receive about 60 to 80 applications a month for these kind of grants, which is why we hold a monthly trustee meeting, so that the trustees can decide every month, so that you don't actually have to wait too long if you apply to us. The general rule, we say 3 to 6 months for a decision, but in reality, it's often a little bit less than that. So you don't have to put an application in January and wait till December for the general program. Decisions are made every month for that one. Also, some of you may have applied for a roof alarm grant. We can give up to £2,500 or 50% of the cost of a roof alarm, which is really useful now that lead theft is back on the rise again. Also, Methodist grants. I don't know if any of you are representing Methodist churches today, but if you are, then you can potentially apply to the Methodist grant scheme, which is a bit like the general grant scheme. So it's for things like capital costs. However, the trustees do like there to be a clear community benefit to that. So, for example, maybe creating a new accessible entrance to a church so that everybody can come in, or perhaps putting in a lift if your church is on different floors, that sort of thing. Transformational, that program has closed at the moment. We're just going through the final round. There are larger grants, but we will be launching new programs next year that will address the same sorts of issues. Heritage Skills is a really exciting grants program. I think it's really interesting. We usually get applications from larger churches and cathedrals for this scheme. It's about helping to employ people who are working in those heritage skills that we don't see so much these days. So perhaps a cathedral wants to employ some apprentices to work in stonemasonry or stained glass or carpentry, that kind of thing, then we can help with grants towards that. But as I said, if you're not sure, don't worry, look at our website. And if you're still not sure, you can contact us before you apply, and I will give you all the contact details a bit later on. Here is our lovely team. We're all friendly, we're all happy to help, so don't be afraid to contact any of us. The person you'll probably encounter if you ring or email is Ewen, who is up there on the right-hand corner. Ewen is our grants administrator. He's a lovely guy. He's really, really friendly and helpful. So don't ever be afraid to ring Ewen if you have a question or a query. He will put you in contact with the right person. And he's so happy to hear from beneficiaries during, before, after projects. He loves it when people ring up to say thank you and to tell him about their project's progress. Underneath, you'll see the grants officers. There we all are. So Paul is the grants officer for the West, Southwest and Wales. Andrew is the grants officer for the North, Scotland and Ireland. So he's usually your grants officer. Usman is the grants officer for Yorks, Humberside and East Anglia. And I am the grants officer for London and the South East. Also, we have our trust director, Leslie King-Lewis, and Sue, Hannah and Alice, who are in our communications team. There's only 3 of them for such a huge charity, and they do amazing work with our communications and marketing. One of the ways we add benefit to you if you receive a grant from us is that Sue and Alice work with our beneficiaries to devise a communications plan for your project. So they will give you support and advice about the best way to market your project or your services. So that's a really important thing for our beneficiaries who may not have experience in that field before, but Alice and Sue can help you with that. Okay, so lots of people say, how do you get your money? Where does the money come from that you give out in grants? And that's a really, really good question. So we are the owners of Benefact Group. Now, ecclesiastical insurance is a name that you've probably heard of. You may be insured with ecclesiastical. They are part of this Benefact Group. It's a large group of financial services companies, including lots of insurance firms, and Benefact Trust owns Benefact Group. So every time there's any excess profits, Benefact Group will give them to us so that we can give them out in grants. So it's wonderful to work for an organisation that is not purely focused on profit for profit's sake. It's focused on giving back to charities and churches. There's a couple of caveats there, and that is that you might think that you have to be insured with ecclesiastical to receive a grant from us, and that is not the case at all. You do not have to have an ecclesiastical policy to receive a grant from Benefact Trust. Also, Benefact Group do their own grants programs too. You may have heard of Movement for Good. And our grant giving as a trust is not linked to their grant giving as a group. So if you apply to us, you can apply to them and vice versa. We don't link our grant giving. So, you know, we're separate in that way, although we do work together. I just want to make it clear that our grant giving is very separate to each other. Okay, here are some of the names that we've worked with before, some of our partners and beneficiaries. Now, we do give multi-year grants, so we may have been working with people over many years to build up good relationships with them. And they help us too, because we can go to them and ask, you know, we're researching for a new grants program. Can you tell us the issues that are cropping up in your communities right now? What should we be focusing on? And because we've built up that really good relationship with them, they can help us with our grant making as well. I want to make it clear to you, though, that although we do give to big charities and big organisations, giving to churches is still at the heart of our giving. It's a really important part of our giving, and the trustees are committed to continue to give grants to churches. We know it's actually quite difficult for an average parish church, if there is such a thing, to find a grant for repairs and maintenance. There aren't that many funders that will give for that kind of project. And we're really committed to supporting churches with that. You know, we know that churches are often run by volunteers. We know that in these challenging financial times, it's hard for you to fundraise. So you can come to us, and if you receive a grant, that grant can be fantastic leverage for your fundraising. We're like a kickstart funder. If your project is under £100,000, we don't ask you to have raised X amount. So we're often the first funder that will give for a project, and other funders will look at that and say, well, you've got a Benefact Trust grant, and that will make them more keen to support you because you've already received a grant from us. If your project is over £100,000, then we do ask that you have already raised about 30% of the project cost before we will give a grant. And that 30% can be pledged grant giving. So you may not have it yet, but it might be pledged. It can be money that you've raised for your own fundraising and donations. It can be any money in your reserves that you have allocated to that project. So we're quite flexible as to where that 30% comes from. Okay, now just to make it even more clear that giving to churches is at the heart of our giving, I just wanted to share with you a couple of projects that we've supported in your region. This is Holy Trinity Church in Oldham. Now, this building is their parish hall. It's not going to win any awards for architectural beauty, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the community that it serves. It's a really important building. All the local community groups meet there. People can hire it for their own celebrations and events. And there aren't many affordable community spaces left across the UK. It's the same story every time. Where do people go for an affordable and accessible community space? They go to churches. Time and time again, they'll go to churches or church halls as the only accessible community space that doesn't charge an absolute fortune for use. So we like to support church halls. So we gave this church a grant to refurbish their kitchen. We all know how important hospitality is for venues like this. And here is another lovely church. Dan tells me it's St. Werburgh's, not St. Werburgh's. And Dan knows that because it's actually his church, and I didn't know that before I came on here today. So this church had a big program, I think it's still ongoing, of refurbishment and renovation works. They want to make this church a really welcoming place for the local community. They want people to know that they can come in, they can enjoy fellowship, hospitality, and worship in this church. So they're building a lovely new, welcoming and accessible entrance. So from the very first moment you see the church and you go into the church, there's this wonderful, welcoming space for you. And it doesn't matter if you have, mobility problems or any issues like that, you can still come in and enjoy all the church has to offer. Okay, so what makes a great grant application? Now, this advice is applicable to making an application with us or with any other funder. Well, you may already know how to write a good grant application. You may be very experienced. If you're not, this is good advice to follow. Okay, so there are lots of funders out there actually. If you do like a Google search, you might find a lot of funders and you have to sort of sift through them. So that it's a really good idea to choose your funder carefully and also look at the different schemes they offer as well. Check the eligibility criteria really, really carefully. If they've got a long list of things and you're not eligible for one of those points on their list, you could spend hours on an application for it just to be rejected offhand, which you do not want. So do check really carefully and don't be afraid to ask funders. If you're not sure whether you're eligible for a scheme or not, please get in contact with them before you apply, and they should be able to tell you. Especially for us, we're more than happy to take queries and inquiries before you apply. So when you're writing an application form, it doesn't have to be super long. It just has to be simple and clear and easy to understand. You don't have to use highfalutin language. We don't care about that. We don't care about your punctuation or spelling. We want to know why you're doing it, who you are, what are you doing, when's it going to happen, and how are you going to make it happen. Just keep in mind those key questions as you're writing an application. Also, when you are providing a budget, now every funder will usually ask you for a budget for your project. Make sure that your budget is specifically related to that project. So I don't want to see your entire church's yearly budget on a big spreadsheet with 10 different pages that I'm having to go through and find the relevant costs. The relevant costs on a budget should just be very specific to that project. How much is that project going to cost? How much have you raised? How much do you need? Our projects our grants are based on project cost. So we generally don't ask you to say, I want to apply for £5,000, for example, because we have like a sliding scale. So that's why budgets are super important for us, because it helps us to identify the relevant costs. On our advice and resources hub, on our website, there is actually a budget template that you can use, which is really good, and you can use that for all different funders as well. So when you've written your wonderful application, it's always a good idea just to ask somebody else to read through it, just in case you've missed some important information, or there's a glaring mistake or something like that, just to get someone else's opinion and to do a bit of a sense check on that. So I would always suggest doing that if you have time. And then check you've included everything a funder asks for. Our application form is quite clear in that it tells you as you go through what you should be uploading when, and you have to upload before you can move on to the next point. But always check that everything that they're asking for is there on your application. And if for some reason you can't upload something, if it says it's too big, or there's a problem with the upload or something like that, for us, just contact Ian. And in most circumstances, Ian will be able to help you, or you can send your information directly through to Ian, who will then attach it to your application. So don't panic or worry if you come across an issue and you can't do something. Get in contact and someone should be able to help you with that. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. But we do have a little bit of time left, I think, don't we? Yeah, we do. We've got 5 minutes or so. So what I'd like to do now is ask if anybody has any questions they would like for me while I'm here. If you do, all you need to do is just unmute and just ask away. We haven't got many people in this talk, so we'll be able to manage it. So don't be afraid. As I said, you can always put questions in the chat or a direct message for me afterwards. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Who would cover the northwest of England, please?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Who would cover the northwest of England?
Can we cover the northwest of?
Sorry,
Yeah, you put
just to pass
pictures
it
up.
on, because I think that we're struggling to hear you. Patricia's asking who covers the northwest of England.
Oh, yeah, of course. The northwest, all of the north is Andrew Bass. So he covers the northwest. Yeah. But you know, you can contact Ian and Ian can pass things across to Andrew or to whoever it needs to go to.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Okay.
cheers. Thanks.
No worries. We do all help each other out. So if somebody's not there, then we'll help them out with a query.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Have we got anybody else who wants to ask a question?
I don't think so.
No, well, shall we say thank you and just remind people that they can ask questions in Hoover still, and they can send you a direct message through the system or via your email, which I believe is on there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, do get in contact if you want to, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Please have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thanks, everyone.